Hello, friends. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. I am coming to you live from Jamaica. We are here for a destination wedding through one of my other photo businesses, Clem Studios. And I thought this would be the perfect place to talk to you about travel hacks. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to pop on just in case anybody is following along this morning. We are here at the Grand Palladium in Jamaica, just outside of Montego Bay. And it has been sunny and warm and humid. That's why you girls got some like curls and waves going on right now. So it's definitely a nice change from the Wisconsin cold and snow that we've been having. Not to spoil the fun for anybody back home. But I wanted to kick off our 2020 video series start with some travel hacks. As you guys probably know and have figured out by now, I love traveling. I'm a huge Wanderlust soul, and I'm fortunate enough to have work that often takes me around the globe. So the ways that I maximize travel make this be the most efficient, the most, sometimes most affordable, but we definitely have things that we splurge on. It's all through these tips and these thoughts and ideas. So I kind of have some major chunks that I'm going to break it down to. So let's start with flights first off. Most often I find flights through Kayak. Sometimes I'll use Google Flight Tracker. Kayak also has a flight tracker. They have a really great Explore option too, which you can put in what your home airport is or the airport that you want to fly out of, and then it'll show you like the cheapest flights available to pretty much anywhere in the world and kind of what's trending at the time. You can adjust the time period, whether you're thinking about, a spring break, or like a winter trip or something like that. So that Explore tool is super fun. See what's trending and going on in the world. Google Flight Tracker can be really great too. I know that there are tons of flight tracking services and different ways that people can buy plane tickets. These are just my two personal favorites that I use. Oftentimes I'm looking at international flights about, 3 to 4 months ahead. Same thing with domestic flights, roughly in there. If I know that I'm traveling and I have more of a window than that, I'll just pop in a flight tracker, and once I start seeing it drop down, that's kind of when I really start researching it. Once you start looking, you can kind of get a pretty good gauge of what's kind of average for your home airport, whatever that may be. Oftentimes I enjoy flying out of Green Bay. That's just a lot easier than driving down to Milwaukee or Chicago and that kind of thing. And I know that most flights out of Green Bay are, around $300, and $300 is probably the cheapest I'm going to see. Maybe like $275. It depends on where you're going, of course. But if I see, less than that, I'm definitely jumping on that. If I were to fly out of Milwaukee, what would make it worth it for me would be around, $200, maybe under that. And a lot of times we can get really great direct flights from either Milwaukee or Chicago to, major cities like Austin, LA, Chicago, that kind of thing. So it just kind of depends on what you're willing to do as far as how far you're willing to drive, if you're willing to pay for parking, that kind of thing. So I'm using Kayak and Google Flight Tracker with that. Another one that's kind of an overarching tool that I use, I guess I would say, is Ibotta, which, I'm not like sponsored by them. I think I have a referral code somewhere. So if somebody is interested, feel free to drop a comment. But Ibotta syncs up with a number of different travel options. I most often use it with Priceline when I'm booking hotels and cars, rental cars, that kind of thing. But Ibotta is a great cashback tool, so that can apply to all different areas of travel. So I just wanted to throw that one in there quick. But back to the flights. Once you have your flight booked or you're booking a flight, I always recommend registering for an airline's miles program, reward frequent flyer miles programs. You can have it across as many different airlines as you want. They're all free to sign up. Oftentimes an airline will have, a credit card that you can sign up for that'll give you bonus miles and that sort of thing. But I just do the frequent flyer programs. I have some credit cards that also give me travel and cash back for that travel expenses and that kind of thing. So that's what I do with tracking. And then when it comes to actually monitoring my flights, once it's, day before my flight, and I want to make sure that I'm going to be on time or that my flight is on time, I use an app called Flight Aware. It does not work off of, Wi-Fi and that kind of thing, obviously, but most airports have free Wi-Fi now. So once you touch down, or if you want to use your data, I always open that up if I have a connecting flight to make sure that the flight is on time. If I need to book it across the airport, or if I've got a little bit of space built in because they're delayed, that kind of thing. It's also super great if you have somebody, picking you up from the airport, or if you're traveling internationally and you can't necessarily drop a text to whomever you want to stay in contact with. They just get your flight numbers. They can see what your flight pattern is, and if you're on time, if you're going to be late, that kind of thing. So that's an awesome tool both for you and those around you that know that you're going to be traveling. Also, if you're not checking a bag, I highly recommend checking in ahead of time. You're able to check in online 24 hours ahead of your flight. That way you can just get a mobile boarding pass. You can walk straight into the airport. You can go to security. You don't have to go up to the counter or anything like that. So that's something that we always do. I rarely check a bag, but if I do, or I have something that I want to bring back, I got a tip for you later in this video. Then you wouldn't be able to check in, or there wouldn't really be a point to, since you're going to be going up to the counter to check in anyway. I have some notes that I'm referring to, so let me make sure that I've got all the flight tips covered. Yes, I do. And I know that I'm keeping this super high level. These are just some really quick, instant hacks and tips that you can use today. You can use them right away. If you want, further in-depth ideas, concepts, suggestions on anything, feel free to drop a comment below. Send me an email, kate@wildclementine.com, and I'd be happy to answer those for you. So that is kind of the flight portion. Next, I'm going to share about hotels. So I almost always use Priceline, or I use Hotwire when I'm reserving a hotel. Priceline, they have their Express Deals option, and Hotwire, they have Hot Rates rooms. That way, with both of those, you don't know what hotel you're booking, but if you're smart, you've done this a lot, you can figure out which one it is ahead of time. It's a lot easier on Priceline too. But they've got great rates. Priceline also syncs up with Ibotta, so sometimes it's 1 to 5% cash back. So why not take some free money? But again, with hotels, it kind of all depends on what you're looking for from your experience. Sometimes we just stay in a 2-star hotel. We just need a quick spot to stay for one night. Sometimes we're looking for a 5-star resort. Things that are very consistent for us across the board, no matter where we're staying. I'm always looking at the guest score, or the guest satisfaction rating, however they word it, something along those lines of how happy people have been when they have stayed there before. And I'm always looking for something that's at least got a 7 or 70% or something like that and above. Anything less than that, you're kind of you're running the risk of having a less than desirable experience, whether that's, bed bugs, a dirty room, that kind of thing. So when we set the bar at 70% satisfaction or higher, we have not had, I'm just trying to think, I don't think we've had any bad hotel experiences. So that's what we're looking for on Priceline. With both Priceline and Hotwire, you can adjust them and have a map view. You can look at the neighborhoods that you want to be in. If you know kind of where you're going to be spending most of your time, or if it's close to either a public transportation hub or downtown where you can walk, those are definitely things to consider when booking a hotel. I would also recommend looking at what their amenities are and their inclusions. If you're looking for a gym, make sure that's listed. If you want something with free parking, that can be a lot harder to find in the cities and that kind of thing. For that, I would recommend using Spot Hero. I'm not sure if it works internationally or not, but definitely domestically. Spot Hero to find yourself a parking ramp if you want to have a car wherever you're traveling, and then you can find something close to your hotel. Many hotels, if they don't offer free parking, they have valet. That can range anywhere from $30 to $60 a day. Depends again on what you're comfortable with. And then with hotels, let me see what else I have noted here. Keep all of your confirmation numbers. So if you're not booking directly through the hotel, and if you don't have a rewards program with the hotel, I know some people are registered with Marriott and the Hyatt and that kind of thing. I use this specifically because we don't register with those. We do travel a fair amount, but for us, we haven't found a perk level that really matches the amount of money that we save by using Priceline and that kind of thing. We know which hotels we like having great experiences with, like the Hyatt, the Marriott, that kind of thing. So I'm keeping an eye out for those when I book them. But just a caveat, little asterisk there, we don't register with any hotel programs. So this is for people who also don't do that. But if you're booking through like Priceline, Hotwire, definitely keep all of your confirmation numbers. Sometimes things happen with tech where you make a reservation, you get there, you're ready to check in, they say, we don't have your reservation in the system. Great. Well, you've got this confirmation number that you can then show, hey, I've got this reserved. You can pull it up on your phone, your email. Printing them out is always a great option too, especially if you're traveling internationally and you might not be able to hook up to Wi-Fi right away. But keeping those handy, that could be a great way if something like that comes up, or if somebody just doesn't necessarily want to give you that room and you've made that reservation and have that confirmation. I think that's everything with hotels that I can think of. So then moving on to restaurants and finding things to do. For restaurants, I do a ton of digging when it comes to finding where we're going to eat because I am a total foodie. I'm a foodie in the sense that I really value when somebody does a great job at what they're good at. And what I mean by that is I don't care if it's a dive bar or, a 5-star restaurant. If you are known for your dive bar burger, I want it to be a great bar burger. I don't want it to be, just food that I'm sticking in my belly and it's greasy and it's gonna make me feel sick afterwards. If you are a high class restaurant that I'm expecting a great experience, that's what I'm looking for and that's what I'm willing to pay for. So I love when people are invested in being the best at what they're good at, or at least striving for that. So that's, just kind of what I'm looking for when I'm researching. I will sometimes look at, TripAdvisor, Yelp. Those can be a little bit wishy-washy, not always consistent or a great bar to be, looking at and researching. I find that there are sometimes a lot of negative reviews on there where, a negative review can say a lot, but I can also attest to the fact that sometimes it's just an off night in the restaurant. So I'm looking for that overall feel of what the restaurant delivers, how they treat their customers, that kind of thing. So I'll read through reviews and that kind of thing. It kind of sounds funny, but when I'm looking at their websites, I'm looking for if they have, of course, photos. That's natural for me, but also kind of what fonts they use, the ingredients that they're using, if I'm looking at something a little bit higher end. Otherwise, if it's a dive bar, I'm not totally concerned about, who makes their buns and that kind of thing. If that's something that you guys want to know more about, again, drop a comment below, send me a message, but I could go on and on when it comes to choosing a restaurant that's going to give you a really great experience. But for just everyday consumer that's looking for a really great restaurant experience, read the reviews, kind of take them with a grain of salt when there are negative reviews that come up. Most places do have one or two at least. But if it seems like fairly recently they've had a lot of negative reviews, that could be worth considering. I also recommend asking locals for things to do once you are on site. If you're like me, I love to know kind of ahead of time where we're going to be eating. I've often made reservations ahead of time, that kind of thing. But if it's something that you're just on a whim, hey, we need some food, we want something in this genre, ask a local, whether it's at, a local coffee shop, maybe drop into a brewery or a, beer bar, that kind of thing. Oftentimes breweries, beer bars, wine bars, they're going to know where really great food is, whether you're looking for just a burger or, a high-end experience, that kind of thing. Hotels, they can give great advice, but sometimes they're getting something on the back end to recommend a restaurant to you, or they have some sort of a deal worked out, which isn't always a bad thing. And sometimes they have a great relationship set up, but oftentimes they are limited to like, these are the 5 places that we recommend no matter what, and not always anything outside of that. Sometimes they do, but I just also kind of take hotel recommendations with a grain of salt. But once I have researched and kind of decided where I want to eat, or I have some ideas, then I often make reservations on OpenTable if the restaurant is listed on there, because I love being able to get rewarded for using the app and going out to eat. A lot of times it's a little bit higher end places that are on OpenTable, so therefore if I'm spending that amount of money and I get a reward and then I get to use that back at another high-end restaurant in future, I am all about that life. I love rewards. I love free money. I will take that all day, every day. So I love the OpenTable app in that sense. It can be a little bit frustrating sometimes to redeem the rewards points, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. Let me think if there's anything else restaurant related for tips. I don't think so. I mean, I think just even just having a really great connection with the server or the bartender or the cicerone or whoever is on staff that's really knowledgeable about what they offer and what they do, that can lead to a really fun and a really great experience. Oftentimes in a little bit higher end place, but also even just like talking to people that are working. It's such a service, both literally and figuratively, that they're giving us by giving us food, providing us this great experience, and just having them be seen and be heard, that can go so far with somebody. Whether that's giving you an extra large order of fries or maybe a free beer or maybe a look into the back end of the kitchen. That can always be super fun. So just making those connections and really connecting with people while we're traveling, that's where it's at, and that's where all the experiences lie. Then for some packing tips, when I pack, I am always rolling my clothes. I find that that takes up a little bit less room than just standard laying them out. And I also I'm packing multi-use items. So I usually pack, like, if it's about a week-long trip, like one pair of jeans for, here in Jamaica, I have 2 pairs of shorts, plus some workout clothes, that kind of thing. So I'm just fully expecting that I'm going to rewear them because, like I said, I typically don't check a bag. I like to be able to just get off the plane and go and not have to worry about my luggage being delayed 3 stops behind me or whatever it may be. So I'm rolling them. I'm filling all the nooks and crannies. This time I brought like a standard rolling suitcase, and it's got the bars across the bottom of the suitcase where the handle sits. So I'm just nestling things in between that. Really taking advantage of like any spare space. So whether that's putting the little box that my jewelry sits in a little nook, rolling my socks. Sometimes I'll roll like a whole workout outfit together, but rolling them is definitely the way to go as far as fitting. They even make great packing cubes that you can put everything in there rolled up, zip them up, and they pack down really, really nice and small. A rolling suitcase is definitely the way to go. This past fall, I had some travel kind of back to back, and I had a duffel bag over my shoulder and then a backpack, and that was just a poor decision for me and on my body. It was not happy. So I definitely recommend a rolling bag if you're able to. And then, of course, a carry-on bag. Those are always free. Should be always free, or your personal item. And then along with packing, if you want to bring anything back from your trip, like oftentimes when I travel, oftentimes, not this time, but I'm looking for beer that I can bring back that we don't get in Wisconsin because of the silly and stupid distribution laws. Discussion for another time. But I'm always looking for things that we don't get at home. So what I do is I will find just a cloth duffel bag. We have a whole bunch of them from LL Bean from years back. Some of them are even just like this big. Some of them are a little bit bigger, but just making sure that I've got that with me, and I just roll that. I shove it in whatever space I have possible if I know that I'm for sure going to be bringing beer and that kind of thing back. And then what I do is you just have to make sure that it's under, I believe, 50 pounds. These, of course, will be checked because you can't bring liquids on the airplane itself. You have to check those bags. So for this check bag, it has to be under 50 pounds. So I'm looking at about how much beer that I'm bringing back, limiting myself to that. And then what I do is I'll just take my dirty clothes that I'm not wearing, or that I might be okay with it getting a little bit of beer on if it breaks, but I've never had a beer bottle or a can break while transporting. But I just roll the beer in dirty clothes. Sometimes I shove them in like a pair of socks if it's just like a beer can, that kind of thing. And then I put them in that duffel bag. I go ahead and I check that bag at the airport because it is much cheaper. Usually it's about $30 for a checked bag on an airplane. That is so much cheaper than the shipping that it would cost to ship beer from wherever you are to home. And then you get it instantaneously because you just get to pick it up right after you land. So that's what I do. And then if I still have like a checked bag, sometimes I'll just put my backpack or my personal item in there, just take out like a magazine or whatever I want to read on the plane. Sometimes it's just my phone and my headphones, throw it in the overhead compartment. Or if my carry-on piece is something that I can roll up, I'll just put in that duffel bag, that kind of thing. But the duffel is great for when you want to bring extra items home, just making sure that it's a small cloth one that doesn't have a ton of like ribbing or support in it. Another great thing to pack would be a copy of your passport. You never know what can happen if you're traveling internationally. And now that the real ID laws are in place, if your driver's license does not is not a federal real ID, there's a little mark in the corner of it that shows that it is. Your passport is the form of identification that you use to get on the planes. So we used our passports. Obviously, we're here in Jamaica, but having a copy of your passport, just in case you were to get lost, something like that. Sometimes that can be helpful just for identifying yourself when you need to get your passport back, when you're waiting for a copy, whatever it may be. Having a copy of that stowed somewhere safe, whether it's in your carry-on, your suitcase, just make sure you have a color copy of that. And then this is kind of something to not pack. I don't recommend using your debit card while traveling. I always bring a credit card or cash because, and this has happened to my dad many, many times when he's been traveling in Europe, and he just doesn't think about bringing a credit card, doesn't remember. Sometimes he's just got the debit card. But what will happen is sometimes they have a skimmer on the reader. Somehow somebody gets your information. And what happens then is with a debit card, they can directly pull the funds from your account and they can just drain it to zero right away. So that would leave you with absolutely no money. And that can take, days for them to process and get back into your account. With a credit card, first off, oftentimes they are scanning for fraud, that kind of thing, with debit cards too. But once you realize that your number has been compromised or it's been stolen or hacked, you can freeze the account, you can stop it, you can decline them, that kind of thing. And it's not automatically debited from your personal money stash because you obviously haven't paid the bill yet. And a lot of times it's a lot faster turnaround time of getting that off your account. Also with credit cards, a lot of times you're getting points, whether it's for travel or just the types of purchases that you're making. So those can be really great too. Okay, I know I went through a lot here in this 20 minutes, so I'm just going to briefly highlight the tips kind of out of order again for everything that I mentioned. Again, this was just really high level starter tips for you guys. If you have any questions on any of these, I know that travel can be really confusing sometimes. Please feel free to reach out, send me a message, send me an email, kate@wildclementine, Clementine with a K.com. But to recap, so for hotels, I always recommend using Priceline and Hotwire. Oh, Priceline is great for rental cars too. And a lot of times you can make a reservation without having to put money down. So if your flight plans change or you find something cheaper, you can just cancel that reservation, no money out of your pocket. So Priceline or Hotwire for hotels. I use Kayak for flights and sometimes Google Flight Tracker as well. I'm using Ibotta for free cashback, especially with Priceline and some other travel spots as well. When I am packing, I am rolling all of my clothes and finding multi-use items. I use OpenTable whenever possible to make reservations for restaurants while I'm traveling. That's also a rewards cashback program. I register for flight miles with all airlines wherever I'm traveling. I don't necessarily have, a frequent flyer mile card, like a credit card, but I do have the frequent flyer mile program with many airlines because I'm often just looking for a flight that aligns with my timing or sometimes the travel budget that a couple has given me. And that doesn't always stay consistent across just one airline that I'm able to, use their card or whatever it may be. I'm using Flight Aware when I'm tracking. Once I have made the reservation and it's the day of or day before my flight, Flight Aware is great for making sure that your flight is on time, not delayed, that kind of thing. And you can also share that information with your spouse, your partner, friends, mom and dad, whoever is tracking your travels, then that way they can stay on top of that as well. I bring a small cloth duffel bag with me when I know that I want to bring beer or items home. They're great to just roll up and then you can check the bag and it's cheaper than shipping. I check in for our flights 24 hours ahead of time if we're not checking bags because then we just get a mobile boarding pass. We go in the airport, we go through security, and we are in the gate in no time. Don't even have to go up to the gate, up to the check-in counter. Getting a credit card with travel perks can be great, especially if you're planning on doing a lot of travel. That's something that you want to get into. Just making sure that you're paying it off so that you're getting those points right away, keeping that interest and those balances down. Having a copy of your passport, a color copy in your suitcase, especially while you're traveling internationally. But now if your driver's license is not a real ID and you're using your passport as your form of identification at the airport, Having a back copy in case it gets lost or something like that can be super useful. Also, not using your debit card while you're traveling. That way they can't drain your account. I recommend putting everything on a credit card or having some cash on you as well. I don't recommend having all of your travel funds in cash on your person, just because you never know what can happen. So it's better to be a little bit safe than sorry, I think, and maybe just put that cash in a savings account and then just paying off your credit card when you get home. Keep all of your confirmation numbers, especially if you are booking like a flight or hotel through Priceline or Kayak or whatever it may be. Sometimes there are tech issues that are just out of our control, so having that confirmation number can be a saving grace for you. And then finally, asking locals for things to do, places to eat, that kind of a thing. And asking a couple locals just to see their feedback. It's like, oh, so-and-so recommended this thing. What do you think about that? Because one person's needs and ideas of a good time may be a little bit different than ours. So just getting that multiple feedback. And asking the hotel can be great, but like I said, sometimes they have a little bit of a system worked out with other restaurants. Maybe there's something going on in the back end, kind of a referral program, that kind of thing. So that is just a rundown of all the travel hacks that I could think of to start us off for these videos in 2020. Any questions on them? Again, leave a comment, shoot me a message. I would love to support you guys because I know that travel can be a little bit confusing, but I definitely think it's something that all of us can take advantage of. Or if you have ideas on what you want to hear more of in 2020, please feel free to let me know too. Okay, we are going to head out to the beach. It was a beautiful sunny day here in Jamaica, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.